Harley-Davidson isn't just a motorcycle company. It's a living piece of American history. From hand-built machines in a backyard shed to cutting-edge electric bikes, Harley has evolved through war, near collapse, and cultural revolutions. But the road wasn't always smooth. Each era brought its own battles, breakthroughs, and bold reinventions. In this video, we're diving deep into the 6 defining eras of Harley-Davidson and how each one shaped the legend we know today. Founding an independent growth era. Before Harley-Davidson became a cultural symbol, it started as a simple experiment in a small shed behind a Milwaukee home. In 1903, William Harley and the Davidson brothers, Arthur, Walter, and later William A. Davidson, built their first motorized bicycle. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't powerful, but it worked. And that was the beginning of a brand that would outlast wars, depressions, and decades of economic change. In the early years, Harley focused on performance and innovation. By 1909, they introduced their first V-twin engine, and just like that, the signature Harley sound and feel was born. The company leaned hard into racing and reliability, winning hill climbs and endurance races that put their name on the map. By the time World War I hit, Harley-Davidson was producing bikes for the U.S. military, sending over 15,000 motorcycles to the front lines in Europe. That rugged reliability became part of their DNA. The 1920s brought a boom in both popularity and technology. Harley rolled out the 74 cubic inch flathead V-twin, expanding their lineup to include everything from utility bikes to more refined road machines. They were even building sidecar rigs and police motorcycles. But the Great Depression in the 1930s hit the industry hard. Most American motorcycle companies didn't survive it. Harley did. Instead of folding, they doubled down. The company released new models, invested in engineering, and in 1936 launched one of the most iconic engines in motorcycle history, the Knucklehead. Overhead valves, better performance, and a distinct look that riders still worship today. Then came World War II, and once again, Harley answered the call. They produced over 90,000 WLA military bikes, solidifying their status as an American industrial powerhouse. By the time the war ended, Harley-Davidson wasn't just a motorcycle company. It was a symbol of American grit. Through the 1950s and 60s, Harley refined its post-war lineup. The Hydroglide brought hydraulic forks. The Duoglide added rear suspension. And by 1965, the Electroglide became the first Harley with an electric starter, just before the company would step into a whole new chapter under different leadership. This era, from the humble shed to the electric start Electroglide, was pure, unfiltered Harley-Davidson. Family-run, race-tested, war-proven. It laid the foundation for everything that would come after, for better or worse. American Machine and Foundry era. If the early days of Harley-Davidson were about passion and perseverance, the AMF era was about mass production and everything that came with it. In 1969, Harley-Davidson was bought by American Machine and Foundry, or AMF. At the time, it sounded like a good deal. AMF was a massive conglomerate making everything from bowling equipment to bicycles, and they had the resources to push Harley into the big leagues. But the moment AMF took control, the focus shifted hard, from craftsmanship to volume. Production lines were ramped up almost overnight. The goal was clear: build more bikes, faster and cheaper. But in the rush to meet quotas, quality control fell apart. Paint jobs were sloppy, engines leaked oil, parts didn't line up right. It wasn't long before Harley riders were making jokes like, "Buy a Harley, carry a toolbox," and it wasn't funny for long. To make matters worse, labor tensions exploded. Workers at Harley's York, Pennsylvania plant were under massive pressure, and the result was frequent strikes, low morale, and even worse quality. At the same time, Japanese manufacturers like Honda, Yamaha, and Kawasaki were entering the U.S. market with cheaper, faster, and more reliable machines. Harley suddenly looked like a dinosaur, expensive, outdated, and unreliable. But it wasn't all bad. This era also saw the rise of the Harley mystique, custom culture, outlaw clubs, and the rebellious spirit of bikes like the shovelhead-powered FX Superglide. Riders weren't buying Harleys just for performance. They were buying into a lifestyle, an image, something raw and unapologetically American. Still, by the early 80s, Harley was in serious trouble. Sales were down, public trust was shaken, and AMF wanted out. That's when a group of 13 Harley-Davidson executives, including Willie G. Davidson, stepped in. They pulled off a leveraged buyout in 1981, buying the company back from AMF and taking control of their future again. The AMF era left scars, but it also left lessons. Harley had seen how quickly a brand could lose its soul when profits came before passion. And now, with the company back in the hands of true believers, they had a chance to rebuild from the inside out. Buyback and evolution era. After years of decline under AMF, Harley-Davidson was back in the hands of riders, engineers, and executives who actually cared about the brand. In 1981, a group of 13 employees, including Willie G. Davidson, the grandson of one of the founders, pulled off a bold move. They bought the company back. It was a make-or-break moment. Harley had one last shot to fix its reputation and stay alive. The early years after the buyback were tough. The company was still fighting off a tidal wave of competition from Japan. Honda's Goldwing was redefining what touring meant. Kawasaki and Yamaha were delivering cutting-edge sport bikes. And Harley? It was still leaking oil and struggling with outdated engineering. So the company did two things that changed everything. First, it petitioned the US government for help, successfully securing temporary import tariffs on large Japanese motorcycles. That gave Harley breathing room, but more importantly, they didn't waste that time. They poured it into reinventing their engineering from the ground up. The result came in 1984, the Evolution engine, or EVO, and it was a game changer. Unlike the unreliable shovelhead before it, the EVO was clean, oil-tight, and dead simple to maintain. It kept the classic V-twin soul, but it finally gave riders something they could trust again. No more toolbox jokes, no more apologies, just solid, dependable power in a bike that still had that unmistakable Harley attitude. With the EVO engine powering models like the Softail, Tour Glide, and Sportster, Harley was reborn. But they didn't stop at mechanics. They launched a marketing campaign that was just as smart as their engineering. Harley wasn't selling motorcycles anymore. They were selling a lifestyle. Black leather, tattoos, wind-blasted road trips across America. Harley-Davidson became more than a machine. It became a badge of identity. By the mid-90s, Harley's transformation was complete. They were profitable, respected, and rising fast. The company went public in 1986, and their stock soared. Factory tours were booming. New dealerships opened across the country, and riders, especially baby boomers, couldn't get enough of the brand they'd grown up dreaming about. But maybe the most impressive part? Harley had done it without losing the soul of what made their bikes special. They didn't copy the Japanese. They didn't try to go high-tech. They went back to their roots: classic design, strong engines, and a raw, emotional connection between rider and machine. The Evolution era wasn't just a comeback, it was a resurrection. The twin cam and global expansion era. By the late 90s, Harley-Davidson was back on top. Sales were strong, rider loyalty was deeper than ever, and with the EVO engine's success, the company had earned a second chance to shape the future of American motorcycling. So in 1999, Harley introduced a brand new power plant, the Twin Cam 88. This engine marked the beginning of a new generation of Harleys, smoother, more powerful, and built for the long haul. The Twin Cam was just what riders wanted: more torque, better performance, and that deep, throaty sound that only a Harley could deliver. Over time, it grew. 88 cubic inches turned into 96, then 103, and eventually 110 on CVO models. And all of it was wrapped in bikes that stayed true to Harley's signature style. Touring bikes like the Electra Glide and Road King became road trip kings. The Softail lineup got refinements in comfort and suspension, and Harley leaned heavily into premium materials, custom paint, and chrome everywhere. If you wanted a bike that looked and felt like pure Americana, nothing came close. This era also saw Harley go global in a serious way. Dealerships opened across Europe, Asia, and South America. They formed partnerships, launched international rallies, and brought that Harley mystique to riders far beyond US borders. In places like Japan and Australia, owning a Harley wasn't just about riding, it was about status. But as Harley's global footprint grew, so did the cracks back home. Aging demographics were starting to catch up with them. Many core Harley riders, especially baby boomers, were now in their 50s, 60s, or older. The brand that once symbolized rebellion had become, well, a bit mainstream. And younger riders? They weren't showing up in the same numbers. At the same time, the custom chopper craze exploded in the early 2000s. Shows like American Chopper turned bike building into primetime entertainment. Harley benefited from the hype, But it also created a bubble. And when the recession hit in 2008, that bubble burst hard. Sales plummeted, dealerships struggled, and Harley had to reassess. Still, the twin-cam era produced some of the most refined, road-ready, and desirable bikes in the company's history. It was Harley at full power, cruising across continents, headlining rallies, and owning the heavyweight cruiser market with almost no competition. But the world was changing, fast, and to stay alive, Harley would have to evolve again, this time not just in engine design, but in identity. The modern era. By 2017, Harley-Davidson was facing a brutal reality. The world had changed, and the old playbook wasn't working anymore. Sales were slowing, the core customer base was aging out, and younger riders weren't lining up to buy $20,000 cruisers. Harley could either cling to nostalgia or reinvent itself. Enter the Milwaukee 8 engine. This was Harley's first all-new big twin in nearly 2 decades. More torque, better heat management, smoother idle, and a much-needed bump in modern refinement. It kept the iconic V-twin layout, but added performance that finally matched up to the competition. For touring bikes especially, it was a revelation. Less vibration, more comfort, and stronger acceleration at highway speeds. But Harley didn't stop at the motor. They overhauled the entire Softail lineup in 2018, merging it with the discontinued Dyna series and upgrading the frame, suspension, and electronics. Bikes like the Street Bob, Fat Bob, and Heritage Classic now rode better, handled sharper, and still looked unmistakably Harley. And yet, it still wasn't enough. The brand had to reach beyond its traditional base. That meant taking risks Harley had avoided for decades. So in 2019, they shocked everyone by unveiling the Livewire, an all-electric motorcycle. No rumble, no gears, just instant torque and silence. It was sleek, fast, and aimed at urban, tech-savvy riders who never grew up idolizing Easy Rider. At the same time, Harley launched the Pan America, a full-blown adventure bike designed to compete with giants like the BMW GS. It was tall, tech-packed, and a total departure from anything Harley had done before. And to their credit, it worked. Reviewers and riders alike praised the Pan America for doing what many thought impossible, building a Harley that could actually tear up the dirt and keep up on twisty mountain roads. The company even revived the Sportster line with the Sportster S, and later the Nightster, using a new liquid-cooled Revolution Max engine. These bikes blended modern performance with classic cues and were clearly aimed at younger riders looking for power, style, and tech, not just chrome and nostalgia. But it wasn't just about the bikes. Under CEO Yoshin Seitz, Harley began reshaping itself as a premium, aspirational brand. They tightened the lineup, focused on fewer models, and leaned into higher quality finishes, better electronics, and a stronger digital presence. Livewire was spun off into its own sub-brand. Global outreach intensified, and suddenly Harley was talking less about bad boys and more about rider experience, technology, and electric innovation. Is it a gamble? Absolutely. But it's one Harley had to take. Because if this brand wants to survive the next 120 years, it can't just keep selling the past. It has to build bikes and a culture that speaks to the next generation. The Milwaukee 8 era isn't just a chapter in Harley's history, it's a pivot point, one that will decide whether the most legendary motorcycle brand in America continues to evolve or rides off into the sunset, the future. Right now, Harley-Davidson is riding into its most uncertain and most important era yet. This isn't just about building bikes anymore. It's about redefining what Harley even is in a world that's rapidly moving away from everything it used to stand for. The traditional cruiser market, shrinking, gas engines, under pressure, young riders, they're more interested in affordability, sustainability, and versatility than in leather jackets and chrome exhausts. And that leaves Harley at a crossroads. So, how do you reinvent a brand that built its legacy on rebellion and rumble? Harley's answer has been a mix of bold moves and careful pivots. Electric motorcycles like the Livewire 1 and the upcoming S2 Del Mar are at the front of their electric division. These bikes don't just target Harley fans. They're designed to attract riders who would have never looked at a Harley before. Light, fast, quiet, and urban-focused. It's an entirely different market. On the gas-powered side, Harley is slowly peeling away from its all-cruiser image. The Pan America proved they could go toe-to-toe with BMW in the ADV world. And with the Revolution Max platform, Harley now has an engine that's modular and capable of being used in multiple types of bikes, from sports standards to touring machines. This opens the door to something Harley hasn't had in decades: versatility. They're no longer just a heavyweight V-twin cruiser company. They're slowly becoming a multi-segment brand. Then there's the digital transformation. Harley's new CEO, Jochen Zeitz, is focused on premium experiences, modern design, and long-term brand positioning. That means better ride modes, integrated tech, subscription-based services, and even experimenting with direct-to-consumer sales. It's Harley, but with a modern playbook. Culturally, the brand is also trying to shed the image of being exclusive to older, wealthier white men. They're engaging more with diverse communities, sponsoring new types of events, and supporting younger creators and custom builders. You'll now see Harleys popping up on TikTok, YouTube, and in music videos with artists that have nothing to do with classic biker culture, and that's on purpose. But it's still a risky path. There's a delicate balance between evolution and alienation. Go too far, and you lose the loyal riders who've stuck with you for decades. Don't go far enough, and you miss the next generation entirely. Harley knows this, and every move they make right now is being watched by an industry that's also being reshaped by electrification, regulation, and changing lifestyles. This isn't just a reinvention era, it's a survival era. Will Harley-Davidson pull it off? Too soon to tell, but one thing's for sure. For a company that started in a tiny shed back in 1903, Harley's never been afraid to bet big on the road ahead. Harley-Davidson's journey is more than a story of motorcycles. It's a story of survival, reinvention, and relentless identity. Each era brought new challenges, new riders, and new reasons to believe in the brand. Whether you're a die-hard Harley loyalist or just discovering what makes these bikes iconic, one thing's clear: the road ahead is just as important as the one behind. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe for more motorcycle history and reviews, and drop a comment below. What's your favorite Harley era, and why?